Ukraine says it's paying with lives as a debate over tanks drags on. Western allies pledged billions of dollars in new weapons for Kyiv on Thursday, but the question of whether they would also send German-made tanks is still unanswered. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskiy delivered a stark reminder to allies from Kyiv.
To oppose thousands of tanks of the Russian Federation, bravery of our servicemen and motivation of the Ukrainian people is not enough. We need weapons. We either need a lot of artillery systems or adequate number of tanks.
At the center of the debate are Leopard battle tanks, whose transfer to Ukraine requires Germany's approval. Kyiv says it needs heavy tanks to fend off Russian assaults and recapture occupied land. And NATO's military chief on Thursday emphasized its importance.
If you have a tank on the other side opposing you, you better have a tank. So I think it is in terms of matching what the enemy has, it is important for the Ukrainians, and in terms of their ambition to regain their own territory, what was taken from the Russians. A tank is an important weapon system.
A German government source said Berlin would lift objections if Washington sent tanks as well. Chancellor Olaf Scholz has been reluctant to send weapons that could be seen as provoking Moscow. Military analyst Gustav Gressel says Germany's main fear is nuclear war.
The Chancellery is enormously afraid of nuclear war, and they perceive they're the prime target for that. I don't know how this strange perception is carrying about. It's sometimes... I have a bit of the impression that Scholz has lost sight of the fact that Germany is actually part of NATO alliance. He's mentally not westbound.
Former Russian president and deputy chairman of President Vladimir Putin's Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, warned NATO on Thursday that a defeat of Russia could trigger such an event. But the explicit recognition that Russia might lose on the battlefield marked a rare moment of public doubt from a prominent member of Putin's inner circle. The debate over the Leopard battle tanks will continue in Berlin, where Western allies will be meeting on Friday. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin met with German officials there on Thursday ahead of the meeting. There was no word on whether Germany and its allies had resolved their concerns.
Well, the tank question is, in a war like it is being fought, every type of equipment is necessary. And the Russians are fighting with tanks, so the Ukrainians need tanks as well. And it was General Kavody that said this very rightfully so. If you have a tank on the other side opposing you, you better have a tank. So I think it is in terms of matching what the enemy has, it is important for the Ukrainians, and in terms of their ambition to regain their own territory, what was taken from the Russians. A tank is an important weapon system.
Regarding Western tanks, I think it's clearly the case that Western technology, modern Western technology, is outperforming Russian technology. However, I would point out that it's not just tank on tank, it's the whole system. It's the supplies, it's the logistics system, it's the maintenance system, it's the target finding capability, and all of that comes together. So the complex of an army is much more important than any one of its individual parts. So I hope that was helpful.
Und deshalb sitzt Deutschland, das ist sozusagen unter Anführungszeichen der Nachteil. Die Franzosen, die Briten können im Grunde nur das liefern, was sie jetzt ausscheiden. Also die Briten, es gibt es auch wieder so Stimmen wahrscheinlich.
Das heißt nicht unbedingt, dass sie Bedenken haben. Also es ist eher so, die haben nicht so viel, also es gibt weniger Druck, weniger Interesse.
The Chancellery is enormously afraid of nuclear war, and they perceive they're the prime target for that. I don't know how this strange perception is carrying about. It's sometimes... I have a bit of the impression that Scholz has lost sight of the fact that Germany is actually part of NATO alliance. He's mentally not westbound. Weil sie den Ajax kaufen. Ja. Aber es ist nicht so, dass sie auf großen Reservebeständen, weil alles, was sie vor diesem Krieg irgendwie... it was basically obvious from March that Ukraine sooner or later would need Western-style battle tanks, because logistical issues, ammunition issues will become more complicated the longer the war protracts. And this was a long war, and it was very obvious that it will be a long war. Now we have wasted roughly 10 months with endless debates, and we're still there.
Also Frankreich auch, weil Frankreich ja eigentlich wenig geschickt hat. Also hat es vielleicht die gleiche Bedenken wie Deutschland?
Nein. I'd say that the capability gap between Eastern and Western tanks, especially if you talk about elderly Leopard 2 versions, is not that big. But the logistical difference it makes in terms of ammunition supply for spare parts is considerable.
Vor der Tribüne sehen Sie den Kampfpanzer Charlie 2 des Panzerzugs über die Anhöhe hinweg angreifen.
Dziękujemy za zaproszenie, panie premierze. Piotr Koliński, Bloomberg. Pytanie krótkie. Czy sądzi pan, że to Niemcy zgodzą się na to, żebyśmy mogli wysłać Leopardy na Ukrainę? Dziękuję.
Dzisiaj w ostatnich dniach właściwie daje się zauważyć.
Today, in the last days really, the very great pressure on Germany has been noticeable regarding sending these modern tanks, Leopards, to Ukraine. But I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that here I am moderately skeptical, moderately pessimistic, because the Germans are defending themselves against this like a devil protects himself against holy water. They do not want to send their modern equipment, especially these Leopards.
W szczególności tych Leopardów.